The alarm sounded across the Galactic Council's monitoring station. A young Velronian operator jumped in his seat as the distress signal filled his screens. His hands shook as he read the message. A civilian transport ship called the Luminous Dawn was dying in space. The ship carried 847 passengers, 12 different species, families, children. They were all trapped in the Shriek Nebula, one of the most dangerous places in known space. Their engines had failed. Radiation storms battered their hull. Pirate ships circled them like predators waiting for prey to weaken. The operator sent the alert up the chain of command. Within an hour, the Galactic Council gathered for an emergency meeting. Ambassador Yuna Kim sat in her seat representing Earth. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and black hair pulled back in a tight bun. She had been Earth's voice to the galaxy for 3 years now. She listened as the other council members spoke. Council leader Threlvus stood at the center. He was tall and thin, with blue skin and 4 arms. His voice was calm and measured as he explained the situation. "The luminous dawn is beyond our reach," he said. "The Shriek Nebula's radiation would strip our ship's shields in 4 hours. The gravitational anomalies would crush our hulls. We have run the calculations 17 times. Any rescue mission has a 2% chance of success." A murmur went through the chamber. 2%. Those were terrible odds. "What about the passengers?" Yuna asked. Her voice was quiet but clear. Threlvus turned to her. His large eyes showed sadness. "It is tragic, Ambassador Kim. 847 lives lost is a great sorrow. But we cannot risk hundreds more lives on a mission that will almost certainly fail. It is not logical." Other council members nodded. They spoke of probabilities and risk assessments. They talked about resource allocation and strategic value. Their words were cold and calculated. Yuna listened to them all. Her face remained calm, but her hands gripped the armrests of her chair. When they called for a vote, she knew what would happen. The council voted to abandon the Luminous Dawn. 23 members voted yes. Only 1 voted no. Earth stood alone. Yuna left the chamber immediately. She walked quickly to her private office and sealed the door. Her fingers moved across her communication panel, opening a secure channel directly to Earth. Fleet Admiral Song Woo Choi appeared on her screen. He was an older man with gray hair and a face marked by years of service. He wore his uniform with pride. "Admiral," Yuna said, "the Council has voted to abandon 847 civilians to die in the Shriek Nebula. They say rescue is impossible. They calculated a 2% survival rate." Sang Woo's jaw tightened. "How many children?" 212. The Admiral closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, Yuna saw steel in his gaze. "I'm activating Protocol Shepard," he said. "No sentient being calls for help where Earth can hear and is left to die." Yuna felt relief wash over her. "Thank you, Admiral." "Don't thank me yet. This will be dangerous. But those people called for help. That's all we need to know." The channel closed. Yuna sat back in her chair and let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Across the galaxy, on Earth, alarms sounded in the Fleet Command Center. Officers rushed to their stations. Protocol Shepard was only used for one thing: when someone needed help and no one else would answer. Admiral Sang Woo stood in the command center and pulled up star charts. The Shriek Nebula glowed red on the display. Dangerous space. Deadly space. The kind of space that killed ships and crews who were not prepared. But Earth ships were always prepared. They were built for the worst. They had to be. Earth was not a gentle world. "Get me the Indomitable, Soul's Hammer, and Busan Runner," Sang Woo ordered. "Full combat loadouts. Medical teams on standby. I want them moving in 30 minutes. His officers moved quickly. They had trained for this. Every human in the fleet knew the protocols. When someone called for help, Earth answered. Captain Daewon Park received his orders while his ship, the Indomitable, was on patrol near the outer rim. He was a compact man with broad shoulders and calm eyes. He had commanded the heavy cruiser for 5 years. "All hands, battle stations," he announced over the ship's intercom. We have a rescue mission in the Shriek Nebula. 847 civilians need us. We leave in 20 minutes. His crew responded immediately. They had trained for impossible missions. Earth didn't build ships or train crews for easy work. The Soul's Hammer and Busan Runner joined the Indomitable in formation. 3 ships, 1 heavy cruiser, 1 assault carrier loaded with Marines, and 1 medical frigate with full trauma teams. On Velron 4 station, the Galactic Council watched their sensors. They saw the 3 Earth ships break formation and set course for the Shriek Nebula. Threlvas contacted Yuna immediately. His face appeared on her screen, showing confusion and concern. Ambassador Kim, we are detecting 3 of your vessels moving toward the nebula. Surely this is a mistake. Yuna looked at him with steady eyes. No mistake, Council Leader. Earth doesn't abandon people who call for help. But the calculations, the probabilities, your ships will be destroyed. Your calculations are based on your ships and your crews, Yuna said. We come from a different kind of world. We'll take our chances. Threlva stared at her. This is madness. You'll lose 3 ships and their crews along with the civilians. Or we'll save 847 lives, Yuna replied. We don't deal in probabilities when it comes to rescue. We deal in certainties. And here's our certainty. Those people called for help. Earth heard. Earth answers. Always. The channel closed. Threlva stood in the council chamber looking at the star charts. The 3 human ships were moving fast, heading straight for the most dangerous region of space in this sector. Other council members gathered around him. They watched the human ships on the displays. None of them spoke. They all thought the same thing. The humans were going to die. But on the bridge of the Indomitable, Captain Daewon looked at his crew with confidence. His navigation officer, Lieutenant Ji Woo-han, was already plotting courses through the nebula. His tactical officer was running combat simulations. His engineering team was reinforcing shields and checking backup systems. They were ready. They were always ready. Earth had taught them well. The 3 ships entered faster than light speed. Behind them, the Galactic Council watched and waited. Ahead of them, 847 people clung to hope aboard a dying ship. And in the darkness between stars, Earth's answer was coming. The Shriek Nebula appeared on the view screens like a wall of purple and red clouds. Lightning storms crackled across thousands of kilometers. Gravitational wells pulled and twisted space itself. It was beautiful and deadly. Captain Daewon stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and watched his crew work. They were calm and focused. This was what they trained for. Radiation levels rising, called out the sensor officer. Shields holding at 98%. Navigation, take us through the southern corridor, Daewon ordered. Use the gravitational map from the probe data. Lieutenant Ji Woo-han worked at her station, her fingers dancing across the controls. She was young but brilliant. Earth's Naval Academy only graduated the best. Course plotted, Captain. The gravity wells are strong, but we can use them, like surfing ocean currents back home. Daewon smiled slightly. Proceed. The 3 Earth ships moved into the nebula. Immediately, radiation washed over their hulls. Alarms would have been screaming on any Galactic Council vessel. The human ships barely registered the danger. On Velron 4 station, the council members watched their sensors in shock. Impossible, breathed Threlvas. The radiation should be stripping their shields by now. Their shields are holding, reported a technician. They're rotating crews to limit exposure. Their hull plating is absorbing most of the radiation. But how? Ambassador Yuna stood nearby, watching the same displays. She spoke softly. Earth sits next to a massive nuclear reactor we call the Sun. We evolved under radiation. Our ships are built to handle it. The council members looked at her with new understanding, and perhaps a touch of fear. Deep in the nebula, the Indomitable's crew worked in shifts. The radiation was strong, but nothing compared to what their ships could handle. Earth's engineers had built these vessels to survive in the worst environments. They had over-designed everything. Backup systems had backup systems. Contact, called out the tactical officer. 5 ships bearing 270. They're on an intercept course. Daewon studied the readings. Pirates, Kareth clan marks. They're circling the luminous dawn. The pirate ships were smaller than the human vessels, but they were heavily armed. The Kareth were known throughout the sector as brutal raiders. They preyed on weak ships in dangerous spaces where authorities wouldn't follow. "They're hailing us," reported communications. "Put them through." The view screen showed a Kareth captain. He was massive, with thick-scaled skin and sharp teeth. His eyes gleamed with confidence. "Human ship, you're in Kareth hunting grounds. Turn back now, or become prey." Daewon stood and faced the screen. His voice was cold and flat. "You have 60 seconds to scatter. After that, you're debris." The Kareth captain laughed. It was a harsh, cruel sound. "Brave words, Deathworlder, but you're outnumbered. 5 ships against 3, and we know these hunting grounds well." 50 seconds, Daewon said. The pirate's laugh died. "You dare threaten us? We've killed hundreds in these nebulas." 40 seconds. "You'll regret this, human." The channel closed. The Kareth ships spread into attack formation. On the bridge, Daewon returned to his command chair. "All ships, combat formation Delta. Rules of engagement are weapons-free. These pirates have been preying on civilians in this sector." "Not anymore." The Soul's hammer moved forward, its assault carrier frame bristling with weapons. The Busan runner fell back, protected by the 2 larger ships. The Indomitable took point. The pirates attacked first. Energy weapons and missiles filled the space between ships. The human shields absorbed the impacts easily. "Return fire," Daewon ordered. What happened next would be analyzed by Galactic Council military strategists for years. The human ships moved with frightening precision. They didn't just shoot at the pirates, they hunted them. Every movement was calculated, every shot was placed perfectly. Earth had spent centuries fighting wars on their deadly homeworld. They had learned to be very, very good at combat. The first pirate ship died in 30 seconds. The Indomitable's main guns tore through its shields and hull like paper. The second ship tried to flee. The Soul's hammer launched fighters that chased it down. The small Earth fighters moved through the nebula's gravitational wells like they were flying through calm air. The remaining 3 pirate ships tried to regroup. They focused their fire on the Indomitable, hoping to overwhelm its shields. "Shields at 70%, reported the tactical officer. "Their weapons are strong." "Redirect power from the backup generators," Daewon said calmly. "Prepare boarding teams." The pirates didn't know what hit them. 2 more ships exploded under the combined fire of the human fleet. The last ship tried to surrender. "Too late," Daewon said. Then he reconsidered. "Actually, take them alive. We'll need to question them about this sector's operations." Marine Commander Tai Yang Kang led the boarding team. He was a tall man with scars on his face and hands that had seen too many battles. His Marines wore powered armor that made them look like walking tanks. They cut through the pirate ship's airlocks and stormed inside. The Kareth warriors were fierce and experienced. They had terrorized this sector for decades, but they had never faced humans in close combat. The battle was brutal and short. The Kareth fought with claws and energy weapons. The humans fought with training that came from a world where apex predators had evolved alongside them, where humans had climbed to the top of the food chain through cleverness and determination. 5 minutes later, Tai Yang reported back. "Ship secured, Captain. 37 prisoners. They surrendered after we breached their command deck." "Good work, Commander. Lock them in the brig. We'll hand them over to authorities after the rescue." The path to the luminous dawn was now clear. The pirates who had been circling the dying ship were gone. Dead or captured. On Velron 4, the Council watched in stunned silence. The entire battle had lasted 4 minutes. 4 minutes to destroy what the Kareth clan had built over decades of raiding. "How?" Threlvis whispered. Yuna watched the displays with a mixture of pride and sadness. Pride in what her people could do. Sadness that it had to be done. "They asked us to leave," she said quietly. "We gave them the chance. They chose violence. They learned that humans don't threaten. We promise. And we always keep our promises. A junior council member looked at her. Are all humans this dangerous? Yuna thought about how to answer. How to explain Earth to beings who had never known real danger. Who came from worlds where predators were small and food was plentiful. Where weather was gentle and survival was easy. We come from a world that tried to kill us every day, she finally said. The weather, the animals, the diseases, even the ground beneath our feet. We survived by becoming very good at two things, protecting each other and fighting back. Those pirates threatened people who needed help. That made them the enemy, and humans are very, very good at dealing with enemies. The council members were quiet. They were beginning to understand what Earth really was. Not just another member world. Not just another species. But survivors of a crucible that had forged them into something the galaxy had never seen before. Deathworlders. On the bridge of the Indomitable, sensors locked onto the luminous dawn. The ship was in terrible condition. Hull breaches. Failing life support. It was being slowly torn apart by the nebula's gravity. Time to rescue? Daewon asked. Jiwoo checked her calculations. 4 hours if we push the engines. Maybe 3 if we're willing to stress the hull. 3 hours, Daewon decided. Those people have waited long enough. All ships, maximum speed. We're bringing them home. The 3 Earth vessels surged forward through the deadly nebula, racing against time to save people they had never met. People who most of the galaxy had already written off as dead. But Earth didn't write people off. Earth didn't calculate odds when lives were at stake. Earth answered the call. Always. The luminous dawn looked like a dying star against the purple clouds of the nebula. Its hull was cracked and broken. Atmosphere vented from dozens of holes. The ship tumbled slowly, caught in the pull of a massive gravitational well. Captain Daewon studied the damage reports on his screen. It was worse than he had feared. The civilian transport was coming apart. Life signs? He asked. The sensor officer worked his controls. I'm reading 793. They've lost life support in multiple sections. The survivors are crowded into the central areas. 793. 54 people had already died. Daewon felt the weight of those losses. Every life mattered, every single one. Get me Dr. Haewon, he ordered. A woman appeared on his screen. She had kind eyes but a serious expression. Dr. Haewon Yoon ran the medical teams across all 3 ships. She had trained on Earth's best trauma centers, places where saving lives was considered a war against death itself. Doctor, we have nearly 800 patients incoming. Multiple species, some injured, all suffering from exposure and radiation. Haewon nodded. My teams are ready, Captain. We've been studying the known biology of all 12 species. We'll adapt our protocols as needed. Some of them are children. Her expression softened for a moment. Then we'll make sure they get home to their families. That's why we're here. The channel closed. Daewon stood and faced his crew. All hands, this is the captain. We're going to evacuate the luminous dawn. Time is critical. That ship is dying, and we need to get those people out now. Every person on this ship knows their job. Trust your training. Trust each other. Let's bring them home. The Soul's hammer positioned alongside the broken civilian transport. The assault carrier was massive, with space for thousands of Marines and equipment. Today, it would carry civilians instead. Marine Sergeant Nari Kwan stood in the airlock with her team. She was small for a Marine, but her record spoke for itself. 3 combat deployments, 2 rescue operations, countless training exercises. She checked her powered armor one last time. Remember, she told her squad over the comm, these people are terrified. They've been sitting in the dark waiting to die. We're going to be gentle but fast. Kids first, then injured, then everyone else. Yes, Sergeant, her team responded. The airlocks connected. Cutting torches flared to life as the Marines burned through the damaged hatches. When the path was clear, Nari led her team inside. The cold hit them immediately. The temperature inside the luminous dawn was far below freezing. The atmosphere was thin and toxic. For the aliens inside, it was barely survivable. For humans in powered armor designed to work in hard vacuum, it was just another day. Nari's helmet lights swept across the corridor. She saw huddled shapes, families pressed together for warmth, children crying, adults trying to stay brave. A Velronian male stumbled toward her. He was blue-skinned and shaking from the cold. His eyes were wide with fear and hope. "You came," he whispered. "They said no one would come." Nari's voice came through her armor's external speakers, warm and steady. "We're here. You're safe now. We're taking you home." The evacuation began. Marines moved through the ship in teams. They carried the injured. They led the weak. They were gentle with the terrified children. Every movement was practiced and efficient. In one section, they found a group of Threxian families. The Threxians were small, barely reaching a human's waist. They huddled together in the dark, too weak to move. Private Kyungsu Bae knelt down beside them. He was young, on his first mission, but he knew what to do. He opened a supply case and pulled out warming blankets and emergency rations designed for multiple species. "It's okay," he said softly. "We've got you. Can you walk?" A Threxian elder looked up at him. Her large eyes reflected the light from his armor. "Why did you come? The council said it was impossible." Kyungsu smiled behind his helmet. "Because you needed help. That's all that matters." He lifted two of the smaller Threxians in his armored hands, cradling them like precious cargo. Other Marines did the same. Within minutes, the entire group was moving toward the airlocks. But not everything went smoothly. Deep in the ship, a section containing 43 passengers was cut off. A chemical leak had caused fires that blocked the main corridor. The temperature in that section was even colder. The air was even thinner. Corporal Ho-Jin Lee studied the situation on his scanner. The fires burned with toxic chemicals. The bulkhead between him and the trapped passengers was damaged and unstable. Going through would be dangerous even for powered armor. He opened a channel to the command ship. "Captain, we have 43 trapped in Section 7. Access is blocked by chemical fires." On the bridge, Daewon received the report. The Galactic Council liaison, a Velronian observer assigned to watch the human operation, spoke up. "Captain, evacuating that section would take too long and risk your Marines. You should focus on saving the others. 43 lives lost is tragic, but 750 saved is still a victory." The bridge went silent. Every human officer turned to look at the alien. The liaison seemed confused by their stares. Daewon's voice was ice cold. "We don't do math with lives, we're getting them all out." He switched back to Ho-Jin's channel. "Corporal, what do you need?" "Cutting torches and emergency oxygen. I can get through, but it's going to be close." "Do it. We'll wait for you." Ho-Jin turned to his team. "You heard the captain. Let's get to work." They cut through the bulkhead while chemical fires burned around them. The heat was intense, even through their armor. The toxic smoke would have killed unprotected humans in seconds. But these Marines had trained for worse. Earth had hurricanes and volcanoes and places where the air itself was poison. This was just another problem to solve. They broke through. On the other side, 43 people waited in the dark. Adults, children, all of them weak and frightened. "Time to go," Ho-Jin called out. "Grab onto the Marines, we're getting you out of here." They moved quickly. Marines carried children. They supported the elderly. They guided everyone through the burning corridor. Ho-Jin went last, making sure no one was left behind. As they reached safety, flames burst through Ho-Jin's armor, burning his left arm and side. The pain was sharp and immediate, but he kept moving. Everyone else first. That was the rule. When the last civilian was through, he collapsed. His team caught him. "Medical Emergency Section 7, his squad leader called. "I'm fine," Ho-Jin protested. "Get the civilians to safety first." "Sir, you're injured." "I said get them to safety." Ho-Jin's voice was firm despite his pain. "That's an order. They come first." His team obeyed. They rushed the civilians to the airlocks while one Marine stayed with Ho-Jin, monitoring his injuries. It was serious, but the corporal refused treatment until he saw the last child carried safely aboard the human ships. On the Soul's Hammer, the medical bays were organized chaos. Dr. Hei Wan and her teams worked with incredible speed. They had patients from 12 different species, each with different biology and needs. A young Velronian doctor watched in amazement as human medics treated a Threxian child. The child's biology was completely different from humans, but the medical team adapted. They used sensors to monitor vital signs. They adjusted medications based on quick analysis. They worked with confidence born from Earth's medical philosophy. If life is valuable, you fight for every second of it. How do you know what to do? The Velronian doctor asked. You've never treated our species before. Heiwan looked up from her work. We adapt. Earth medicine is built on the idea that death doesn't get to win just because we don't have perfect information. We learn fast, we try hard, and we never give up. All around them, humans worked to save alien lives. It didn't matter that they were different species. It didn't matter that the biology was unfamiliar. Every patient received the same care, the same dedication, the same refusal to accept defeat. By the time the last passenger was evacuated from the luminous dawn, all 793 survivors were aboard the human ships. The transport vessel finally broke apart, torn to pieces by the nebula's gravity. But everyone aboard was safe. Captain Day Wan stood on his bridge and watched the civilian ship die. 54 people had been lost before they arrived. He felt each of those losses. But 793 were alive. 793 people who would go home to their families. Children who would grow up. Lives that would continue. Set course for Velron 4, he ordered. Let's bring them home. The 3 Earth ships turned and began the long journey back through the Shriek Nebula. They carried precious cargo now. Lives that the galaxy had written off. Lives that Earth had refused to abandon. And in the medical bays, Corporal Ho-Jin finally allowed doctors to treat his burns, only after personally checking on each of the 43 people he had saved. The journey back through the Shriek Nebula was slower than the journey in. The 3 Earth ships carried nearly 800 extra passengers now. They had to be careful. Every life aboard was precious. In the medical bays, Dr. Heiwan moved between patients. Most were stable now, recovering from cold exposure and radiation. Some had injuries that required more care. All of them were alive, and that was what mattered. A young Velronian girl named Cyrix watched the human doctor work. The child had big eyes and blue skin that was slowly returning to its normal color now that she was warm and safe. Are you an angel? Cyrix asked in her small voice. Heiwan smiled and knelt beside the girl's bed. No, sweetheart. I'm just a doctor. We're taking you home to your family. My mother said angels would come if we were good. You came from the sky to save us. The doctor felt her throat tighten. She gently touched the girl's hand. Your mother sounds very wise. Rest now. We'll have you home soon. Throughout the ships, similar scenes played out. The rescued passengers were recovering, but they were also learning. Learning about the strange beings who had charged into hell itself to save them. In one of the common areas, a group of passengers gathered around engineer Sun-Hee Kang. She was showing them a display of Earth's solar system. This is our home, she explained, pointing to a blue and green planet. Earth, 3rd planet from our sun. A Threxian elder studied the image. It looks beautiful. So much water. It is beautiful, Sun-Hee agreed. It's also trying to kill us most of the time. See these white swirls? Those are hurricanes, storms with winds that can destroy buildings. And here, these gray areas? Volcanic regions. The ground literally explodes with molten rock. The passengers looked at her in shock. A Velronian male spoke up. But why do you stay? Why not leave such a dangerous world? Sun-Hee smiled. Because it's home, and because it taught us valuable lessons. It taught us to build strong, to plan for disasters, to never give up. That's why our ships have so many backup systems. On Earth, you always need a backup plan. Private Kyung-Soo Bae sat with a group of Threxian children in another area. They were asking him questions about humans. Children were the same everywhere in the galaxy, curious and full of wonder. Why did you come save us? One child asked. The adults said it was too dangerous. Kyung-soo thought about how to explain. On Earth, we have a saying. It doesn't matter how big the storm is. If someone is drowning, you go into the water. You don't leave people behind just because it's hard. But you could have died, another child said. Maybe, Kyung-soo admitted, but you needed help. That's more important than being safe. An adult Threxian nearby listened to the conversation. He was a teacher, traveling with his students when the ship had failed. He approached Kyung-soo. Your people are different from others in the galaxy, the teacher said. Where we calculate and consider, you simply act. Sometimes thinking too much means someone dies while you're still planning, Kyung-soo replied. We learned that lesson the hard way on Earth. When someone needs help, you move first and worry about the details later. On the bridge of the Indomitable, alarms suddenly blared. Captain Daewon was on his feet instantly. Report. The tactical officer's face was grim. Multiple contacts, 17 ships, Kareth clan marks. They're the rest of the pirate fleet. Daewon felt his jaw tighten. The pirates were back, and they had brought friends. 17 ships against 3. And his ships were carrying civilians now, limiting their combat ability. A transmission came through. The face on the screen was a massive Kareth female, clearly the clan leader. She had scars across her scaled face and cold, cruel eyes. Human captain, she growled. You destroyed 5 of my ships. You captured my warriors. Now you will pay. Return my people and the salvage rights to that transport ship, or I'll destroy you all. Daewon stood tall, facing the screen with calm eyes. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but filled with steel. Your people were preying on civilians. That ended the moment we arrived. Now you have 2 choices. Leave now, or learn the same lesson your clan members learned. We don't negotiate with pirates. The Kareth leader snarled. You're outnumbered. 17 ships against 3. You can't win. You're between us and people who need protection, Daewon replied. Move or be removed. You have 30 seconds to decide. The channel closed. The Kareth fleet began moving into attack position. On the bridge, the tactical officer looked worried. Captain, we're carrying civilians. Our maneuverability is limited. And 17 to 3 odds are irrelevant, Daewon finished. They're pirates. Bullies who prey on the weak. We're Earth Defense Fleet. We've trained for worse odds than this. He opened the ship-wide channel. All hands, combat stations. We have hostiles incoming. Remember your training, protect our passengers. Show these pirates why Earth doesn't back down. Throughout the 3 ships, humans moved to their positions. Marines secured the civilian areas. Engineers reinforced shields. Weapons crews loaded munitions. Everyone knew their role. In the medical bay, Dr. Haewon received the alert. She gathered her staff. Secure all patients, prepare for possible casualties, and stay calm. Our people know what they're doing. The Kareth fleet attacked in a mass formation, trying to overwhelm the human ships with sheer numbers. Energy weapons and missiles filled the space between them. But the Earth ships didn't fight like the pirates expected. They didn't panic. They didn't scatter. They moved with precise coordination that came from thousands of hours of training. The Indomitable's guns spoke first. Each shot was calculated and placed perfectly. The lead Kareth ship died in seconds, its shields overwhelmed and hull breached. The second ship tried to dodge but flew directly into the Soul's Hammer's firing arc. It exploded in a ball of fire. The pirates began to realize their mistake. Numbers didn't matter if your enemy was simply better at combat than you were. Commander Ta Yang Kong launched his fighters from the Soul's Hammer. 20 small craft streaked through space, weaving between gravitational wells and radiation storms like they were flying through clear air. Each pilot had trained in Earth's atmosphere, where gravity was crushing and weather could change in seconds. This nebula was actually easier. The fighters tore through the pirate formation. They were faster, more maneuverable, and flown by people who had grown up fighting against odds. 3 more pirate ships fell to the fighters' weapons. The Kareth clan leader watched her fleet being destroyed and felt fear for the first time in decades. These weren't normal prey. These were predators. All ships, scatter, she ordered. Get away from the humans. But it was too late. The human ships had them in a tactical box. Every escape route was covered. Every maneuver was predicted. Earth's military doctrine had been refined through centuries of warfare on a planet where only the strongest, smartest, and most adaptable survived. The battle lasted 12 minutes. When it was over, 14 Kareth ships were destroyed or disabled. 3 had managed to flee into the nebula's deepest regions. The human ships had taken damage to their shields, but nothing serious. Captain Daywan surveyed the battlefield. He felt no joy in the victory. War was never something to celebrate. But these pirates had threatened his passengers. They had preyed on innocents for years. They had to be stopped. Damage report, he ordered. Shields at 60% across all ships. Minor hull damage on the Soul's hammer. No casualties. Good. Secure any prisoners and continue course to Velron 4. In the civilian areas, the rescued passengers had felt the battle through the ship's movements and heard the distant sounds of weapons fire. Now they sat in awed silence. The Threxian teacher who had spoken with Kyung-Soo approached the young Marine again. "You fought 17 ships to protect us?" Kyung-Soo shrugged. "They were in our way. We had people to deliver home safely. Nothing was going to stop that." "But the odds..." "Didn't matter," Kyung-Soo said simply. "You were counting on us. That's all the reason we needed." The teacher looked at the young human with new understanding. These Deathworlders didn't see impossible odds. They saw people who needed protection. And that changed everything. On Velron 4 station, the Galactic Council had watched the entire battle through long-range sensors. They had seen 3 human ships destroy what had taken the Kareth clan decades to build. They had watched tactics and combat ability that exceeded anything in their military databases. Council leader Threlvis stood in silence. His 4 hands trembled slightly. They just eliminated a pirate threat that has plagued 3 sectors for 20 years, as a side objective to a rescue mission. Ambassador Yuna watched the displays with quiet pride. They had passengers to protect. The pirates were in the way. "My people don't leave loose ends when lives are at stake." Another council member spoke up. "How did they do it?" "The mathematics say they should have lost." Yuna turned to face them. "Your mathematics are based on your experience. You've never had to fight for survival every single day. Earth did, for millions of years. We got very, very good at it. Not because we wanted to, but because we had to." The human ships continued their journey through the nebula, carrying their precious cargo home. Behind them, the pirate threat that had terrorized this region of space for decades was broken. And ahead, the galaxy was beginning to understand what it meant when Earth made a promise. Velron 4 station appeared ahead like a bright jewel against the darkness of space. The 3 Earth ships emerged from the Shriek Nebula, battered but victorious. Inside their hulls, 793 rescued passengers prepared to reunite with their families. The docking bay was crowded. News of the rescue had spread across the station. Families pressed against the viewing windows, desperate for their first glimpse of loved ones who had been declared lost. Captain Daywan stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and watched the station grow larger on the view screen. He was tired. His crew was tired. But they had done it. Everyone was coming home. "Open a channel to the station," he ordered. The station master appeared on screen, a Velronian male with tears in his large eyes. "Captain Park, we can't believe it. You actually did it." "We don't leave people behind," Daywan replied simply. "Requesting permission to dock all 3 ships. We have passengers who want to see their families." "Permission granted. All docks are open for you. And Captain, thank you. Thank you from all of us." The ships docked smoothly. The airlocks opened. And then there were reunions. Syrinx, the young Velronian girl, ran into her mother's arms. Both were crying and laughing at the same time. Around them, hundreds of similar scenes played out. Parents finding children. Husbands and wives embracing. Friends reuniting. The Threxian teacher found his family waiting. His spouse and children rushed to him, all talking at once. Through his own tears, he looked back at the human ship and saw Private Kyung-Soo standing in the airlock, watching the reunions with a quiet smile. The teacher approached him one last time. Thank you doesn't seem like enough. Kyung-soo shook his head. You don't have to thank us. This is what we do. Get home safe. Hug your family. That's all the thanks we need. In the medical bay of the Busan runner, Dr. Haewon supervised the transfer of patients who still needed care. Station medical teams stood ready, but many were hesitant. They had never seen such aggressive medical treatment before. A Velronian doctor approached Haewon. Your methods are so different from ours. You take risks we would never consider. Haewon looked at the patients being transferred, all alive because her teams had refused to give up. On Earth, death is the enemy. We fight it with everything we have. Sometimes that means taking risks. But every person in these beds is alive because we took those risks. To us, that's worth it. I want to learn, the Velronian doctor said. Will you teach us? Haewon smiled. Of course. We're all trying to save lives. We should share what we know. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. The council chamber was packed with members from dozens of worlds. Everyone wanted to understand what had happened. Ambassador Yuna stood before them, calm and composed. Behind her on the main display screen, footage from the mission played. The journey through the nebula, the destruction of the pirates, the evacuation of the luminous dawn, the final battle. Council leader Threlvis spoke first. Ambassador Kim, what your people accomplished should have been impossible. We calculated a 2% chance of success. You achieved 100%. Your calculations were based on your capabilities, Yuna replied. Not ours. Earth ships are built differently because Earth taught us differently. We over-engineer everything. We train for worst-case scenarios. We never give up. That's not special. That's just how we survive. Another council member stood. But the risks, you could have lost 3 ships and all their crews, plus all the passengers, the mathematics. Yuna interrupted gently. With respect, council member, we don't do mathematics with lives. 847 people called for help. That's all the calculation we needed. They needed rescue. We could attempt it. So we did. But what if you had failed? Threlvis asked. Then we would have failed trying, Yuna said firmly. But at least those people would have known that someone cared enough to try, that someone heard their call and answered. Can you imagine dying in the dark, knowing that people heard you asking for help but decided you weren't worth the risk? The chamber fell silent. Many council members looked uncomfortable. They had made exactly that decision. A young council member from a small world spoke up. The passengers we've interviewed all say the same thing. The humans never hesitated, never calculated odds. They just acted. They say it's because you come from a death world. Is that true? Yuna nodded. Earth is harsh compared to most of your worlds. Our gravity is stronger. Our weather is more violent. Our diseases are deadlier. We evolved alongside predators that saw us as food. We had to become smart, tough, and cooperative just to survive. Every human technology, every doctrine, every instinct comes from millions of years of fighting to stay alive on a planet that kept trying to kill us. She paused and looked around the chamber. But that gave us something valuable. We learned that survival depends on protecting each other, that the strong must help the weak, that when someone calls for help, you answer. Not because it's logical, not because the odds are good, but because it's the right thing to do. Threlvis was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice thoughtful. You've given us much to consider, Ambassador. Your people have shown us capabilities we didn't know existed. More importantly, you've shown us a philosophy we had forgotten. Thank you. Over the following weeks, the galaxy buzzed with the story. 793 survivors returned to their homeworlds, each carrying tales of the Deathworlders who had saved them. The story spread through communication networks, growing with each retelling. The Galactic Council received thousands of petitions. Member worlds demanded action. They wanted humans available for future emergencies. They wanted Earth's help. 6 months after the rescue, a formal proposal came before the Council. It was called the Shepherd Protocol, named after Earth's own rescue doctrine. The proposal was simple. In emergencies where Council forces were deemed insufficient, humanity would be authorized to respond. The vote was unanimous. Every member world agreed. Earth was given special status, not as conquerors, not as overlords, but as protectors, as the people you called when the impossible needed to be done. Admiral Sang-Woo Choi stood in Earth's Fleet Command Center and read the Council's decision. He smiled slightly. So now it's official. We're the galaxy's rescue service. His second-in-command laughed. Sir, we were always going to respond anyway, with or without permission. True, Sang-Woo agreed. But now we can do it without starting an interstellar incident. That makes the paperwork easier. Training programs began. Earth military personnel started working with Council forces, teaching them tactics and techniques. It was slow work. The other species didn't have Earth's advantages. They couldn't survive the conditions humans found routine. But they could learn the philosophy. They could understand that courage wasn't about being fearless. It was about deciding that something mattered more than your fear. Lieutenant Nari Kwan, promoted after her heroic work in the rescue, led a joint training session on Velron 4. She stood before a mixed group of alien recruits and human instructors. You're not humans, she told them bluntly. You can't survive what we can survive. Your worlds were gentler, and that's okay. But you can learn what we learned. You can understand that some things are worth risking everything for. That calculation has its place, but compassion should come first. The alien recruits listened carefully. They were learning from people who had charged into a death zone without hesitation, who had fought overwhelming odds to save strangers, who had turned impossible into routine. A year after the rescue, a monument was erected in Velron 4's main plaza. It was beautiful and simple. A tall crystal column with the names of all 847 passengers saved from the luminous dawn. Around the base, the words were carved in every Galactic Council language. In the darkness between stars, when hope seemed lost, the Deathworlders came. Not for glory, not for profit, but because someone called for help. An SOS to Earth is never ignored. Ambassador Yuna stood at the monument's dedication ceremony. Around her were survivors from the luminous dawn. Captain Daewon and his crew, Dr. Haewon and her medical teams, the Marines who had gone into hell to bring people out. Cyrix, the young Velronian girl, now fully recovered, placed flowers at the monument's base. She looked up at Yuna with her large eyes. Are you really not angels? The child asked. Yuna knelt down and smiled. No, sweetheart. We're just people who decided a long time ago that helping others is more important than staying safe. Your people can be the same. Anyone can. When I grow up, Cyrix declared, I want to help people too, like the humans do. Yuna felt her throat tighten with emotion. Then you will make the galaxy a better place. Years passed. The Shepherd Protocol became standard procedure. Earthships began regular patrols of dangerous regions. Piracy dropped across multiple sectors. Rescue success rates improved throughout the galaxy. Other species learned from Earth. Not just tactics and technology, but philosophy. They began to understand that some calculations couldn't be done with numbers. That some decisions had to come from the heart, not the head. The galaxy changed. Slowly but surely, it became a little bit braver, a little bit kinder, a little bit more willing to help instead of calculating risk. And at the center of it all was Earth, the death world that had taught its children to survive by protecting each other. The planet that had forged a people who would charge into hell itself because someone called for help. In Fleet Command on Earth, new alarms sounded regularly now. Distress calls, emergency requests, impossible situations. And each time, the response was the same. Earth heard. Earth answered. Always. Because in the cold mathematics of space, in the vast emptiness between stars, in the darkness where hope seemed lost, there was now a certainty, a promise that echoed across the galaxy. An SOS to Earth is never ignored, and the Deathworlders always respond.